The Galactic Council's Environmental Protection Fleet arrived in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. Their message was simple. Earth's contamination levels had exceeded acceptable parameters. The human species had exactly one solar revolution to clean up their planet, or face immediate quarantine and potential extinction-level sanitization. Admiral Helena Santos stood at the United Earth Defense Command Center, staring at the projection of Earth's garbage patches swirling in the oceans. Centuries of plastic waste had created virtual continents of debris. The aliens' ultimatum had sparked global panic, but Helena saw something different in those swirling patterns. She saw potential. "They say we have too much plastic," she addressed the Emergency Council. "I say we don't have enough." The room fell silent. The collected leaders of Earth's nations stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. Perhaps she had, but desperate times called for desperate measures. The Arxer ships use quantum-locked energy fields for defense. Helena continued, pulling up the scans their primitive sensors had managed to capture. "Our weapons can't penetrate them because they're too sophisticated. But that's exactly why something unsophisticated might work." She gestured to the sprawling garbage patches. "We've spent centuries trying to break down plastic. But what if that's been our mistake all along? What if indestructibility is exactly what we need?" The Chinese premier leaned forward. "What exactly are you suggesting, Admiral?" "I'm suggesting we weaponize our garbage. We collect every piece of plastic waste on Earth and in our oceans. We melt it down and reshape it into the simplest, most primitive orbital defense system the galaxy has ever seen." Plastic. The Russian president scoffed. "Against advanced alien weapons?" "Yes," Helena smiled. "Because plastic doesn't break down. It doesn't degrade. Energy weapons designed to disrupt advanced materials just pass right through it. It's too primitive to be affected by their sophisticated attack systems." The room erupted in murmurs. It was crazy. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of thinking that had gotten humanity this far. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's leading materials scientist, stepped forward. "The Admiral might be onto something. Plastic's molecular structure is remarkably stable. Most energy weapons are designed to disrupt complex atomic bonds. But plastic just sits there, unchanging, nearly eternal. We have 1 year," Helena pressed. 1 year to turn our greatest shame into our salvation. We don't need to match their technology. We need to go in the opposite direction. We need to embrace what makes us different." The UN Secretary General stood slowly. "And if we fail?" "Then we fail trying something uniquely human," Helena responded. "We take our biggest mistake and turn it into something meaningful. Isn't that what humanity does best?" The vote was unanimous. Operation Permanent Solution was launched within hours. Every nation, every corporation, every citizen was mobilized. Massive ocean cleanup operations began, but not to dispose of the plastic, to collect it. Recycling centers worked around the clock, not to break down the plastic, but to reshape it into something new. The aliens watched with bewilderment as humans seemed to be gathering their pollution rather than eliminating it. Their warnings became more frequent, more threatening. But humanity had committed to their course. In orbital construction yards, massive sheets of processed plastic began taking shape. Not sophisticated space stations or advanced weapon platforms, but simple, crude barriers. Layers upon layers of the material humanity had spent generations cursing now formed a protective shell around Earth. "They'll never expect it," Helena told her staff as they watched the first sections move into position. "They're looking for advanced technology, for sophisticated solutions. Instead, we're building the galaxy's biggest recycling project." The alien deadline approached. Earth's oceans were cleaner than they had been in centuries, but not because humanity had eliminated their plastic problem. They had simply moved it upwards, transformed it into something new. As the last segments locked into place, Helena received word that the Arxer fleet was approaching, no doubt coming to make good on their threats. She smiled, watching Earth's new defense grid shimmer in the sunlight. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't elegant, but like humanity itself, it was stubborn, resilient, and impossible to get rid of. The time had come to show the galaxy that humanity's greatest weakness could become their greatest strength. After all, what better way to protect Earth than with something that would take millions of years to destroy? The Arxur fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation. Their crystalline ships gleamed against the backdrop of space, each vessel bristling with weapons that could reduce entire cities to ash. Admiral Zextal stood on his command deck, mandibles twitching with anticipation as he observed the human homeworld. Then he saw it. His sensor officer's report had to be wrong. "Explain to me," he said slowly, "how the humans have surrounded their planet with garbage." The sensor officer's appendages trembled. "It appears to be refined hydrocarbons, Admiral. What they call plastic. They've constructed a crude orbital shell with it." Zextal's crystalline features shifted through various shades of puzzlement. The humans had been given a clear ultimatum: clean up their pollution or face extinction. Instead, they had gathered all their pollution in one place and arranged it around their planet like some primitive shield. "Send the warning," he ordered. "Let them see what real power looks like." The lead ship fired its main quantum disruptor, a weapon designed to shatter the atomic bonds of any known material. The beam struck the plastic barrier and passed straight through, its energy dispersing harmlessly into space. Zextal's color shifted to deep purple. "Impossible." "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the quantum disruptor is designed to target complex molecular structures. This material is too simple. There's nothing for it to disrupt." They tried everything. Plasma beams that could melt tungsten bounced off the plastic sheets like light off a mirror. Graviton torpedoes, designed to crush advanced hull materials, simply made the plastic barrier wobble. Even their most sophisticated weapons either passed through harmlessly or were reflected back into space. On the Earth Defense Command Station, Helena watched with satisfaction as the alien fleet exhausted their conventional weapons. Status report. "The plastic barrier is performing better than expected, Admiral," Dr. Tanaka reported. "Their weapons are either too advanced to affect it or too weak to damage it. It's like trying to destroy a paper airplane with a supercomputer. They're operating on completely different levels." The Arxur's frustration became evident as they switched to kinetic weapons, launching projectiles at the barrier. The plastic sheets flexed and bent, absorbing the impacts. Occasionally a piece would break, only to be quickly replaced from Earth's seemingly endless supply of processed waste. "They're trying to think too hard," Helena observed. "They keep looking for a sophisticated solution to what they see as a sophisticated defense system. They haven't realized that they're essentially fighting garbage." The battle, if it could be called that, continued for hours. The Arxur fleet expended enough firepower to glass a continent, yet Earth's crude plastic shield remained largely intact. Humanity's greatest environmental mistake had become their greatest defensive innovation. Finally, Zextal could take no more. "This defies all military logic. How can primitive waste material stand against the most advanced weapons in the galaxy?" Helena opened a communication channel. Her voice was calm, almost amused. "Perhaps, Admiral, that's exactly why it works. You've spent millennia developing weapons to counter increasingly advanced technology. But what do you do when faced with something so primitive it barely registers as technology at all?" "This is absurd," Zextal sputtered. "Your solution to pollution was to turn it into a weapon." "Not a weapon," Helena corrected. "A shield. One that will take thousands of years to degrade, just like it would have in our oceans. We didn't solve our plastic problem, Admiral. We merely relocated it somewhere useful." The implications began to sink in. The humans hadn't just created a defense system. They had turned their greatest environmental weakness into an impenetrable barrier. More than that, they had demonstrated a way of thinking that no advanced civilization had considered. Sometimes the best solution wasn't to advance, but to step backward. As the Arxur fleet retreated to reconsider their approach, Helena turned to her staff. "Get me the UN Council," she ordered. "Tell them Phase 2 is ready to begin. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity's garbage has more uses than they could possibly imagine." The plastic barrier continued to orbit Earth, a testament to human ingenuity and their unique ability to turn their mistakes into advantages. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't advanced, but like the species that created it, it was stubbornly, inexplicably effective. The news spread through the galactic community like a quantum shockwave. A primitive species had turned their pollution into an impenetrable defense system. The Galactic Council chambers erupted into chaos as species after species demanded explanations, and more importantly, solutions. Helena Santos found herself standing before the Council 3 months after the failed Arxur attack. The chamber was filled with representatives from 1,000 worlds, each more advanced than humanity, yet all of them fixated on Earth's crude plastic barrier. "We've received 17 requests for what you call recycling technology," announced High Counselor Vexna, her bioluminescent form pulsing with barely contained agitation. 12 worlds want to establish trade agreements for your waste material. And the Zivil Collective is offering advanced starship designs in exchange for what they call primitive defense consulting. Helena maintained her diplomatic composure, though inside she was smiling. "Earth would be happy to share our recycling methods, though I should point out that our barrier's effectiveness comes from its very primitiveness. You can't improve it by making it more advanced. That would defeat the purpose." The council chamber filled with murmurs. The concept seemed to physically pain some of the more technologically advanced species. The idea that moving backward could be a form of progress violated everything they believed about civilization's evolution. A representative from the Silicon Consciousness, a fully artificial species, raised an appendage. "Our analysis suggests that your plastic barrier's effectiveness stems from its molecular simplicity. We have spent millennia developing countermeasures for increasingly complex technologies, but nothing for something so basic." "Precisely," Helena agreed. "Sometimes the best defense isn't to move forward, but to step sideways, or even backward. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our advancement, but our ability to find unexpected uses for what already exists." The implications were starting to ripple through galactic society. Species that had looked down on humanity as primitive were now reassessing their own technological dependencies. The Arxur's failure had exposed a critical weakness in advanced civilization. They had become so focused on countering sophisticated threats that they'd lost the ability to handle simple ones. But it wasn't just military implications that caused upheaval. Earth's solution had inadvertently created a new economic paradigm. Worlds that had been drowning in industrial waste suddenly saw potential resources. Species that had been too primitive to join the Galactic Council found their simple technologies in high demand. "There's more," Helena continued, activating a holographic display. "We've discovered that our plastic barrier has properties that interact uniquely with quantum communications. The very simplicity that makes it hard to destroy also makes it an excellent medium for storing and transmitting data in ways your advanced systems never considered." The chamber erupted again. The idea that primitive materials could have applications beyond advanced technology was reshaping galactic thinking. Humanity hadn't just defended Earth. They had demonstrated that progress wasn't always linear. Back on Earth, research teams were already exploring new applications. The plastic that had once choked their oceans was being transformed into quantum-resistant computer cores, simple but nearly indestructible space habitats, and communication systems that operated on principles so basic they were invisible to advanced surveillance. "We're not suggesting everyone should abandon their advanced technology," Helena explained to the Council. "We're suggesting that true innovation means being willing to look in every direction, including backward, for solutions." The Arxur representative, still smarting from their fleet's embarrassing retreat, raised an objection. "This is dangerous thinking. It could destabilize millennia of technological progress. Or," Helena countered, "it could lead to new forms of progress we never considered. After all, Isn't the ability to find new uses for old things a form of advancement itself? As the council debated, Helena received a priority message from Earth. Dr. Tanaka's team had made another breakthrough. They had found a way to combine their primitive plastic technology with advanced alien principles in ways that defied conventional physics. Phase 3 could begin ahead of schedule. Humanity was about to show the galaxy that they weren't just good at repurposing their mistakes. They were about to demonstrate how combining the primitive with the advanced could create something entirely new. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood in her orbital laboratory, watching as her team assembled what might be the strangest weapon ever created. They were essentially building a giant ball of refined plastic, but with a twist that would change everything. The principles are remarkably simple, she explained to Admiral Santos, who had come to observe their progress. We've discovered that when we layer the plastic in specific patterns, it creates what we're calling null zones, spaces where advanced technology simply stops working. The implications were staggering. Humanity had accidentally discovered that their primitive material could temporarily neutralize advanced technology simply by existing in the right configuration. It wasn't through any sophisticated mechanism. Rather, it was the complete absence of sophistication that caused advanced systems to fail. How soon can we deploy? Helena asked, watching as another section of the massive sphere took shape. The first nullifier is ready for testing, Yuki replied. We're calling it the Pandora. The Arxer hadn't given up after their first defeat. Their fleet had regrouped and returned with allies, determined to find a way through Earth's plastic barrier. They had spent months probing for weaknesses, growing increasingly frustrated as their most sophisticated analyses failed to comprehend the barrier's primitive nature. They never expected Earth to strike first. The Pandora emerged from behind Earth's barrier like a soap bubble drifting through space. The Arxer fleet's sensors barely registered it. There was nothing technological to detect. As it approached their formation, they didn't even consider it a threat. That was their second mistake. Activating null field, Yuki announced from the control center. The Pandora began to spin, its layered plastic shells creating overlapping patterns that rippled through space. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the Arxer fleet, advanced systems began to fail. Quantum computers crashed, unable to maintain their delicate states in the presence of something so fundamentally simple. Energy weapons powered down as their sophisticated targeting systems encountered what amounted to a void in their understanding of physics. This is impossible. The Arxer commander's transmission cut through the chaos. You cannot defeat technology with its absence. Actually, Helena replied, opening a channel. That's exactly what we're doing. Your systems are so advanced, they can't handle encountering something that operates on purely basic principles. It's like trying to run quantum calculations on an abacus. The complexity collapses under the weight of simplicity. The Arxer ships began to drift, their advanced propulsion systems rendered useless by the null field. They still had backup systems, primitive chemical thrusters that could move them out of range, but using them would be an admission of defeat they weren't ready to make. Think of it as a reset button, Helena continued. A reminder that sometimes the most effective solution isn't the most advanced one. You can retreat now, using those simple chemical thrusters we know you have, or you can drift in space while your sophisticated systems try to comprehend the incomprehensible. The choice was made for them as a second Pandora emerged from Earth's barrier, then a third. Humanity had found a way to weaponize simplicity itself, turning their primitive solution into an active defense that could render the most advanced fleet in the galaxy about as threatening as a collection of space debris. As the Arxer fleet retreated on their backup systems, Helena turned to Yuki. How many Pandoras can we build? As many as we need, Yuki replied. We're literally recycling our way to galactic security. But there's more. We've found that different plastic configurations create different effects. Some disrupt quantum communications, others interfere with FTL drives. We're just beginning to understand how our primitive technology can influence advanced systems. The implications weren't lost on anyone. Humanity hadn't just found a way to defend themselves. They had discovered an entirely new form of technological warfare, one that didn't rely on advancement, but rather on the strategic use of simplicity. "Send word to the Galactic Council," Helena ordered. "Tell them Earth is ready to negotiate from a position of equality. And remind them, sometimes the best way forward is to take a step back." As the message was sent, the Pandoras continued their silent patrol, their very existence a testament to humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. They had turned their greatest environmental mistake into their greatest technological achievement, not by making it more advanced, but by embracing its fundamental simplicity. 5 years after humanity's first deployment of the Pandora devices, the galaxy had changed in ways no advanced civilization could have predicted. Admiral Helena Santos stood at the observation deck of the new Galactic Exchange Center, built in Earth's orbit using a combination of advanced alien materials and Earth's processed plastics. The structure itself was a perfect metaphor for humanity's impact on galactic society. "Another Nulltech shipment ready for the Andromeda sector," reported Captain Miguel Rodriguez, reviewing the manifest on his datapad. "The hive minds are particularly interested in our low-tech quantum shields. Apparently, they're tired of their thoughts being so easily hacked." Helena nodded, watching as workers loaded simplified plastic-based technology onto massive transport ships. What had started as a desperate defensive measure had evolved into an entirely new technological paradigm. Nulltech, technology that worked by deliberately avoiding sophistication, had become Earth's most valuable export. "How's the new hybrid research going?" she asked, turning to Dr. Yuki Tanaka, who had just arrived from the integrated laboratories below. "Fascinating," Yuki replied, her eyes bright with excitement. "We're finding that combining advanced alien tech with our primitive materials creates effects that neither approach could achieve alone. The ARCSR are particularly interested in our new communication systems. Apparently, the idea of making their quantum networks more secure by making them partially non-quantum is very appealing." The ARCSR had become unlikely partners in the new technological revolution. After their military defeat, they had been the first to recognize the potential of humanity's approach. Their advanced scientific knowledge, combined with Earth's primitive innovation, had opened up entirely new fields of study. "The latest numbers from the Galactic Economic Council just came in," Miguel added. "Earth's basic materials exchange is now the third largest trading hub in the galaxy. Turns out there's a huge market for technology that can't be hacked, corrupted, or overridden because it's too simple to affect." Helena smiled, remembering how it all started with a desperate plan to repurpose Earth's plastic waste. Now planets across the galaxy were establishing their own recycling programs, not to eliminate waste, but to transform it into valuable nulltech materials. "We've received another interesting proposal," Yuki mentioned, pulling up a holographic display. "The Silicon Consciousness wants to establish a joint research initiative. They believe combining their advanced AI with our primitive processing systems might create artificial intelligences that are immune to quantum corruption." The implications were enormous. Humanity hadn't just found a niche in galactic society. They had fundamentally changed how civilization thought about technological progress. The old assumption that more advanced always meant better had been permanently challenged. "There's a delegation arriving from the galactic core worlds," Miguel reported. "Apparently, they're interested in establishing what they're calling technological balance, using both advanced and primitive systems in harmony." Helena watched as another transport ship departed, carrying Earth's refined plastic technology to distant worlds. Who would have thought that humanity's greatest shame would become their greatest contribution to galactic civilization? "You know what the really ironic part is," she mused. "We spent centuries trying to solve our plastic pollution problem by making things more advanced. Better recycling technology, more sophisticated decomposition methods. But in the end, we solved it by simply changing how we thought about the problem itself." An alert sounded, indicating an incoming transmission. The holographic display showed representatives from 30 different species, all part of the newly formed Technological Balance Council. Earth held a permanent seat, not because of their advanced capabilities, but because of their unique perspective on progress. The galaxy needed us, Yuki observed, watching the delegates appear. Not for our advancement, but for our ability to think differently. Every other species was so focused on moving forward that they never considered the value of simple solutions. As the council session began, Helena reflected on humanity's journey. They had transformed from a species on the brink of extinction due to their pollution into one that had fundamentally reshaped galactic technology. Not through superior advancement, but through the courage to embrace simplicity when everyone else sought complexity. Sometimes, she addressed the council, the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the most sophisticated technology. It's the one that understands when not to use it. The gallery erupted in agreement, 1,000 different species acknowledging a truth that only humanity had been primitive enough to discover. True innovation wasn't just about moving forward. It was about being willing to move in any direction that led to a better solution. Earth's plastic barrier still orbited the planet, no longer just a defense system, but a monument to human ingenuity. It stood as a reminder that sometimes the best way to solve a problem wasn't to overcome it with sophistication, but to reimagine it with simplicity. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't technological advancement. It was the advancement of thinking itself. They had proven that progress didn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes, it meant having the wisdom to take a step back and see solutions that everyone else had become too advanced to notice.